Okay, we're going to call this a meet. Oh, not yet? All right. I'm sorry, Holly. Okay. We're going to call this meeting to order, and let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll move on to public comment. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. Each person has up to 5 minutes to speak on a specific agenda item. With public comment, whether on an agenda item or general public comment is limited to 5 minutes. To comment during the meeting, members of the public may call 702-589-9629 when the public comment is opened, and it is now open. Okay, hearing no public comment, then we will move on to our first agenda item. For possible action, approval of the minutes. Number 8, April 12th, 2021, special meeting.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as printed.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? The minutes are placed on file. Okay. Now we'll move on to approval of the minutes for April 28th, 2021 regular meeting.
Make a motion to accept the minutes as printed. Need a second.
We need a second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 Any negative? Motion carried, and the minutes will be placed on file. Okay, for possible action, review and recommendation on a proposed addition at 726 Park Street relative to the adopted exterior design guidelines for that area.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The owner, Joe Pastana, who I believe is in the audience, yes, is proposing a patio cover addition that will be visible to Park Street. This home was previously reviewed by the committee on February 27th, 2019 for an enclosed addition to the rear of the home that was also partially visible to the street. And the new patio cover will be attached to the front of that addition, and it's shown on red on that graphic on the screen. For the patio cover addition, the closest applicable standard for a patio cover in the adopted guidelines is for porches, which refers to that category as a screened porch off the bedroom, which is now enclosed for this type of home. And the other listed guideline is that additions are traditionally built onto the rear of the home, and this patio cover will be to the side. It's not clear per the adopted guidelines if other standards were intended to apply only to enclosed additions for a house or also to a patio cover, such as for the wall finish, the roof type, the roof material, and eaves and rafters. Again, I'm sure all those guidelines, what the committee envisioned at the time is that those would be applicable to additions, and the guidelines simply really don't address patio covers and how those should be built, and presumably that can hopefully be addressed with future revisions to the guidelines. But what we've got adopted now is attached in the packet along with additional information.
Okay. Would you like to comment?
Sure, hi,
Joe?
my name's Joe Pistana, I live at 726 Park Street, Joe Pistana. It's a patio cover that's similar to the neighbors, but it's a little smaller, so it has probably less of a profile this way. Can I get a picture of the front of the house there? I'll show you about where it would be seen. There we go. So if you kind of see a black dot just above the center line of that wall, that's the outside light. It's going to go just above that, and it should come straight out. And it's not solid. It's more of a, I know when I put this in that it looks more solid, but it's more of like the next door neighbors, more of a lattice type aluminum. It'll never go bad and get ugly as far as the color goes and things like that. We've been trying to keep everything as nice as we can in the front.
Okay. It looks very attractive from the way it's described here. Any other comments?
I got a quick question. On the packet, I'm sure it's kind of a generic plan.
Right.
There's showing three different designs. Now, two of them are not attached to the house, one is attached. Is what you're planning on, is it gonna be attached to the house, or it'd be kind of a freestanding one?
This one we're talking about will be attached along the wall and to the new part of the house, and then along the wall, not really screwed in because I didn't want them to damage the original stucco. So I'm gonna have them put a post in to hold that so that we're not having a bolt right into the side of the house.
Okay, so it basically could be freestanding.
It's basically, yeah, it's
Yeah,
freestanding.
okay.
But it'll be so close, you won't be able to really
Right.
notice that it's.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're getting at. I was just curious if it would be actually just, bolted right to it, or just built as close as you can to the building.
And then there'll be one post on the corner, of course, on the outside.
Any other comments?
I'm sorry, can you confirm, or what is the front of the home? Is
Right here.
this is the front? Okay, good. There's no streets that
There's a
you
little
can identify.
fence here.
That's what I was wondering. Okay,
You see the
so
little-
it's going to be
little
towards the
fence?
back and not
Yeah.
towards the front. Okay,
Yeah, here's that little fence with the
Yep.
gateway in there.
Yep, if you see that little black dot that's right over the wall, it'll be just above that black dot.
you can't see
That's
from
the,
here.
that's the
but-
outside porch light.
Yeah. Which dot do you think he's talking about?
The dot that's hidden behind the tree branch.
Right,
Yeah.
right
Right.
near the tree bench, right.
Got it.
Yeah. I like your choice of red.
Oh, it'll be white.
Oh, it'll be white.
I just did
On
that,
our-
I just did that to highlight it so that we knew
on
exactly
here
what we were
it
talking
looks
about.
red. Okay.
No, it'll be white,
Oh,
just
so
like
it'll
the rest of the
match
house.
like the, yeah, okay, good.
Yeah, I drove by there just before the meeting to just get a better visual on it with, it's a 3D picture in my mind, and I can see why you'd want to use it there to make use of that little patio area there, so.
It'll help with the heat too, I think, in the summer, keeping it off the house itself.
Does it have to be attached to the house? Is that for
I
compliance or,
It'll only be attached to the new addition.
oh, the new addition and not the
I
historic
didn't
home?
want them to do anything to the original house or the original stucco, so I told them I wanted it to put a post versus bolting it to the side of the old house. trying to avoid any damage to the original house with the
Thank you.
stucco.
Well, I would just like to compliment you on your sensitivity to that issue.
I appreciate it.
Okay. Hearing no other comments, thank you very much for
You're
coming
welcome.
today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, moving on to number 3, for possible action, discussion on the status of the proposed designation of the Bullock Field Historic District per section 1127-3 of the City Code.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The committee had previously requested a status update on this item, and basically a history timeline has been provided in your packet. The key reasons why this item has not gone forward yet is that when it was reviewed by the Planning Commission, per request from the Elks Lodge, they had requested that the matter not go to the City Council until the Elks Lodge had made its decision, because the Elks Lodge had requested postponement until their new board can consider the proposal. And at that time, which is, I believe, back in 2018, the Elks Lodge did not respond to former member Alan Goya's attempts to communicate with them about that matter. And then after that, former city manager Niola put the item on hold so that the city could discuss, the broader overall goals of the committee, which then resulted in amendments to the strategic plan. And as a result of the strategic plan, as the committee knows, the city is moving forward on draft code amendments. The only other comments noted here are that when this item does eventually proceed to the City Council, the committee may wish to consider some minor updates, because one aspect is already out of date in terms of I-11 already being in existence rather than pending. And obviously, somebody should make an attempt to contact the Elks Lodge to see if they have a current opinion as to whether or not they want that building to be included in the proposed future district.
Okay, any comments on this Bullock Field Historic District?
I've just got a question, maybe, if we go with this, that historic district, does that building have to be included in it? I mean, could be the dotted line go around it, shall we say? I mean, is there any chance that that building's gonna be reverted back to a museum of what the airport terminal used to be? I mean, I don't envision that ever happening, so I mean, would it be okay just to draw a line around it and exclude it from?
What would be appropriate is just to direct that the district boundaries be revised, so as to completely exclude that property. And that way then, if you're excluding the entire Elks Lodge property, any future code amendments that might, have regulatory impact on properties within a historic district wouldn't affect the Elks Lodge if it's not within the historic district. So the city created that map based on direction from the committee a couple of years ago, so of course it can be amended. If it's amended, I'd say we'd probably recommend that it might need to go back to the Planning Commission, but they had their concerns because at that point in time, we hadn't had confirmation as to whether or not the Elks Lodge, wanted, had for certain voted to be included, and they spoke up at that meeting, saying they were unsure about that.
Okay, I've got another kind of question going into it. No, my understanding is just a portion of that building was the original terminal, not the whole building as it stands now. Does anybody know? I don't know what part was, what part wasn't. I'm just curious if anybody knows how much of the building was terminal and how much has been added on to, or.
I don't think anybody would know that for sure unless people at the Elks Lodge might know. I do recall from information that Member Davenport had provided a couple years ago that per an NDOT environmental study for potential routing options for the future I-11 or alternatives to the future I-11, back around 2002 or so, when they did their environmental study, they had to look at all buildings within areas, the area of potential effect. And so they were looking at all the buildings along the highway, and their analysis of the hangar was that absolutely that's, a very, nearly unique and historic structure that was eligible for listing on the National Register. But with regard to the terminal building, that so many changes have been made to the building that it was definitely not recommended for listing on the National Register.
So definitely not contributing to the historic district.
Not that there was a historic district there, but they said
Yeah.
it was not eligible for listing on the National Register, which is what they look at when they're doing those types of Section 106 reviews.
Would there be any benefit to the historic district except for future, if that building was included, down the road, there might be some changes in historic, for ordinances, whatever. I mean, would there be anything that could ever come up that would really apply to that because the building has been modified so much, it's not recommended as being part of a, historic building, shall we say. So would it be easier just for us just to draw a line around it and just exclude it? I'm just, I'm throwing that out,
Yes.
just kind of a thought, and see
Interesting
what anybody
idea.
else thinks.
So generally, when you're considering a historic district, you look at the historic boundary. And I don't know why we came up with this current boundary, the green space, because I'm wondering,
The runway, you guys
well,
wanted
yeah,
the-
except there's more to the property, it looks like to the right, and I'm not sure what these little things are. Tie downs, I thought. But anyway, I think historically, I was wondering if the airport property was actually larger than this, so we would need to find out what the historic boundary was. And then you would overlay like a historic district boundary based on what's contributing and not. You could keep the Elks Lodge within the boundaries of the historic district, but it would be considered non-contributing. Or you can do a boundary around it, as well as, I'm not sure if these homes were historically, are within the historic airport site, but here they're obviously, drawing the boundary around it. So, but I just wonder what's going on with the property to the south, or I should say southeast of the current historic district boundary. And if that should be included within the historic district, or at least defined historically what was there.
I'm sorry, it's a little difficult to discuss what you're talking about. Are you talking about the space between what is outlined in green and Veterans Memorial Drive?
Yes.
Or,
So,
excuse me, or Adams Boulevard?
or Adams, yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, so there's I can see kind of another runway, or I don't know if that's a road, and then see these little doohickey things here.
Well, unfortunately, I know that you guys discussed this for more than a year, so it would involve, if you really want to dig into this further, what we would do is we would just bring back to you all the minutes
I don't think those
for
are
all the
kind-
meetings where you discussed it.
I don't
And
think those are structures at all.
They don't have to be structures, those could be, I thought maybe were tie downs or other features associated with the airport. So,
Well, at one time, there was another runway, my understanding, someplace, and it's coming
I
back in my
think it
head.
was
Yeah, it came down in here, and part of it has actually been built over by, I think the mobile home park, extended down into the mobile home park there. at one time, prior to it, if I'm not mistaken. So that's already off the table for being part of the historic district, it's already built up. And then maybe Michael Mays can help me. It wasn't that long ago that the city was looking for proposals of what to do with all that land there. It wasn't there's like 3 or 4 proposals that were put out.
Correct, and those proposals were brought before the Historic Preservation Committee. They provided their input, went to the council, presented to the council. The council didn't take any action. The current status of the hangar is being utilized by the city for storage of equipment, and there's been no direction from the council to revisit the RFI or RFP for hangar use at this time. So it's currently being used by the city.
So, does the committee want to discuss this further to recommend that we have a historic district here?
Well, I'm just gonna throw this out, if I may. It's just, everybody's, we're all concerned about the hangar. I think everybody in the city is, concerned that we preserve the hangar. It's a valuable piece of land that the city could possibly sell off sometime, excluding the hangar. I mean, make it a piece of dirt, because at one time, back in the 30s, airplanes landed on it, make that a historic piece of, a historic district. I'm not sure why we would need to do that. I mean, if somewhere down the road to turn the hangar into a museum, show pictures of what it used to be. I mean, just to save that long, narrow strip of dirt, because at one time it was a dirt runway. And tie downs, normally they're just, anchors in the ground. I mean, it's, it'd be one thing if it was some ancient iron from Egyptian times or something like that, but this is just some tie down. So, just in my mind, I think if we make a historic district, just basically the hangar, and an acre or 2 around it, so you got future parking if the city ever does something with it. But as to, save an old dirt runway, like I say, just because some airplanes used to land on it, I understand the historic part of, Boulder City and the airport, how important it was, but do we really need to save that piece of dirt?
Well,
Just my thought.
another thing too is a lot of our Spring Jam and the Art in the Park and all of that, those are really big events, and I think they use that for parking, that area. Is that correct? Michael, you want to help me here?
I know in the past that for special events, that area has been used for parking.
Okay. So, I mean, I think that's valuable in that regard because, those events are something that we have every year. It seems to me that since the city council hasn't given any direction that hangar is being used right now, I don't know that we really need to worry about it.
So one of the things, or one of the duties of the Historic Preservation Committee is not necessarily to set aside properties to restrict their use, but to identify them.
Okay.
And so this is a pretty good first step as far as kind of a little history of it. But there's no, and it's a history of like the whole site almost, and there's not a big detailed history about the hangar, the building that was behind it that was recently-ish demolished, or the Elks Lodge or the terminal building. But also there should be a boundary as far as what was the airport. And then you can determine was there and what's now gone. And then based on that, you can draw your boundary based on what's contributing. And it doesn't matter what the city or what's in the plans for what the city wants to do with it, whether they want to sell it or reuse it for something. It doesn't necessarily matter. You're not setting a boundary to restrict its use.
Okay.
You're just kind of identifying it. It's more of an inventory, at least in my opinion, at the local level.
So then,
Because I mean, then we have our ordinance, and then we could figure out, well, if the city wants to do something with those properties, so let's say it is within the historic district, the city would just have to go through the process of what is identified in the ordinance in order to do something with that property. If they have to sell it, they want to build condos on it, whatever.
So what's the next step then, since we've gotten that far? We've got the history, we have semi-boundaries. What would be the next step then?
So I guess my question is, did Brock provide a map of where the airport was? What was the boundary, the historic boundary of the airport?
I believe that was an early submission to the committee.
Yeah,
when
we did
it-
see those
yeah.
in the
Yeah,
minutes.
I think it
Yeah.
showed like 2 or 3 different runway
Yeah, he did
paths.
make
And
those
like
available.
Glenn mentioned, I think the other 2 had development that went over them, be it the golf course or that mobile home park, et cetera. Again, the only way to really, I realize it's been a couple of years, so none of us has
It's a little fuzzy.
has a terrific
fuzzy.
Yeah.
memory, but,
Yeah.
I mean, you can let staff know whether you want all the materials to come back to you, or whether you just want me to email you with all the meeting dates when it was discussed, and then, show you how to look up that packet information that's on the city, available through the city website, because you discussed it over many meetings, there were many different graphics and maps attached, and it evolved into what you have in this packet. That was what you took to the planning commission, and what was going to go forward to city council at that time.
So my next question then is, I think we've talked about this, when we want to nominate properties to the local register, what is the process or what is the material that's needed? Is it just this map and is it just this history? Or I thought we talked about, or maybe it was a recommendation in one of the plans or Mooney's report, perhaps we have to use, or we should be using the Nevada SHPO's resource form to identify, list what's in the historic district, quote unquote, and actually define the historic district.
My recollection is that the committee's path was that you wanted to get the designation per our current code first, and then that you were planning to follow up with applications to the state and possibly national.
Okay.
But again, you'd need to read all those minutes and look at the past graphics, et cetera.
I've got a quick, what can we do here, let's say, shall we say tonight, to go on to the next step to keep this moving instead of keep kicking the can down the road? It's kind of, like I say, it's been talked about for a couple of years and things have been proposed and put together, and it would seem to me that we need to go forward with, if we're going to do something, let's do something, let's go forward to what we have to do for the next step. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I think, if we're going to do something, let's do something instead of just let's gather some more information, let's go forward. And
Sure.
then if we need more information, get that information to keep that step going forward.
Chair Graham may make a couple of suggestions. In light of the fact that the city is currently going through an evaluation of amending our historic preservation ordinance, I'd hate for the committee to be focused on one effort and have that change midstream as you're trying to move forward with that, with the adoption of new codes. Another opportunity that would present itself here is that we're still working on final adoption of the historic preservation plan, which also talks about these types of historic resources, and getting that advanced to the council for their adoption and review. And that will also reinforce some of the action items that were contemplated in there, looking at additional resources like the hangar. And third, within the next fiscal year, City Council did approve the fiscal year 22 budget last night. That did include resources for the city to hire a consultant to help with historic preservation efforts. And I think that would be a resource that would be very helpful in working with the committee in looking at options of how to evaluate different alternatives with the preservation of the hangar and surrounding property.
Okay, so I think we still have this project kind of on hold. I think Michael makes a good point that we don't want to mess up this work that we've gotten so far with the ad hoc committee. And this has been a very important project that has been culminating for several years. And I agree with Michael. I don't think we want to mess that up. So maybe we should just put this on hold till we finish up with the, I know the city attorney already did all of the writing of that, and you've copied kind of the SHPO, but how does it go next? I mean, does it have to be approved? Does it go through the planning commission or the council? What does it do next?
Well, I'd be happy to talk about the next steps when we get to that agenda item.
Oh, okay. All right. I think Michael makes a very good point. I think we should just wait on this. This is, we did a lot of work. I think we spent a lot of time going over this, and we kind of hit a roadblock because the city manager wanted us to pursue the CLG, as you recall, and we decided that that was more important. And we did get the CLG status. We did get we were able to write grants now, and the ad hoc committee was formed, and I think we're really stable in those areas. So I would think that we need to just hold off on this for a while. Is that agreeable to everyone?
Can we, if we table it, can we go ahead and table it, but put a date when it will come back on the table?
Sure.
So that there's
Yeah.
we know when it's gonna come back up, so
Okay.
not just, it hangs out there in limbo forever because
Yeah.
sitting in a corner collecting dust.
I agree. Okay, so let's see. Go ahead, Ray.
Well, and there's nothing to stop us from establishing researching what the boundaries were. In the meantime, I mean, we could still have some more discussion about that going forward, but.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you
but
want to
still,
keep it on the
I
agenda
understand what you
then?
mean, and I support that, but I think we should still work to identify what the original boundaries were, what was where, and things like that, and we'll be better prepared when the time comes.
Okay. So what do you prefer? Should we just go ahead and keep this on the agenda and do some more discussion?
And can I ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
You said funds were set aside for the next fiscal year, which starts in July, right?
Correct.
Is it something we should consider asking, what is the cost for doing a reconnaissance survey of what resources are out there that are affiliated with the airport?
Yeah, I
the
could certainly make
airfield?
an inquiry as to what that cost estimate would be.
And that's,
Okay.
I think would be super helpful, and if we can help with that, as far as walking the boundary of the area to locate what's out there still, and that helps define what the boundary is. I don't know, I'm still not clear of why the boundary was written like this,
Okay.
but it's been a long time and it's super fuzzy.
So do you want the minutes to come back to us?
No,
Okay.
I don't think we're at that point yet. I think those minutes should be provided, should we use, or should a consultant be hired? That consultant would be the person that would need perhaps some of that information
Okay.
that was in those past packets.
Okay. So then if we keep this item on the agenda, then would you want to put it aside for a couple months, or do you want to keep it on the agenda?
Can we keep it on the agenda as far as update on the status of hiring a consultant? And what's the status of that?
Would that be under goals and priorities?
I would think so.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I don't see it related to this agenda item per se,
Okay.
so, yeah.
Oh, okay, so we'll proceed with that then, goals and priorities, and with the timeline with getting the new preservation person on board,
Should we identify
which
which,
has been approved.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, which goal would that fall under?
Okay, let's see, we're moving ahead a bit. Number 3.
Well, yeah, there's one about for districts.
Identify historic, no, let's see.
Number 3.
Number 3.
There you go. Okay.
Yes, that's right. Okay, so it would go under that then, for goals and priorities and to update.
And that way it keeps it on the agenda
In
as a
circulation.
reminder and,
Okay. Okay, very good. That's fine. Is it all clear now? Are we all clear with it? Are we clear, Susan, as
Yeah.
how to proceed? Okay. All right, very good. Thank you. Sure. Okay, then we'll move on then. We're moving on to number 4. Update on implementation of the committee's goals and priorities.
So Chair Graham, that's a good segue
Yeah.
into this
Into the
item. and-
next-
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, as usual, this is the monthly update on committee's progress on several goals.
Right.
And please let me know if you have any questions.
I just want to say, I'm very pleased with how this has proceeded, the way this was lined out, the committee's goals, the objective, the action item, and the update. And we've really made good progress, you guys. I'm really proud of all of us. I mean, we've just kept this online, and our community development director, Mr. Mays, has been a wonderful guide to help us with this. And I was just delighted that the budget was approved for the water preservation plan. I mean, that, we have done a lot. So, and this has been a very good guide, so thank you very much for helping us with this. All right, any other comments?
should we do this?
What's that?
Should we?
Oh, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, it's okay, you guys, you can pat yourselves on the back. No, really, look, in retrospect, we're doing good. So keep up the good work, okay? All right, so any other comments about the goals and priorities? So then we're going to go ahead and finish going on with the historic bullet field that will be included. Any other comments? Okay, so then we'll move on to number 5 for possible action. Update from the Historic Preservation Ad Hoc Committee. Did you notice too that we did receive a note here? It's dated May 20th, and it's about the Preservation Ad Hoc Committee. There's going to be some workshops coming up. I can talk about it, or would you like to, Blair?
So this is the first I've seen of this memo, which I assume went to every property owner in the historic district,
That is correct.
just the historic district. Okay.
But it's also being promoted to the entire community to invite anyone who is interested in learning more about the proposed ordinance changes.
Yes, and that was our recommendation, is to have some input from the homeowners. So I'm going to be on vacation. I'm sorry I can't be here. It looks very interesting, so.
Chair Graham, if members Turner and Davenport don't mind, I can do a very brief overview of the status of the ad hoc committee's activities.
Okay, all right, very good, thank you.
So at their last meeting, they provided further guidance to staff on the draft ordinance. And the next steps and direction from the ad hoc committee was to hold these public outreach events. And so these outreach events One is identified for residents and the other is identified for businesses. And it's an opportunity for citizens to come to these meetings. There'll be an opportunity to interact with ad hoc committee members and staff to ask questions about the proposed ordinance, to help tell the why. We will also have information there, including the draft historic preservation plan, access to the Northwind survey, additional information to provide background information to the public who attend these meetings. At these meetings, we'll be collecting feedback from the citizens and then taking that back to the ad hoc committee. Concurrently, with their revisions to the draft ordinance, we've submitted that to SHPO for review. And so the committee is looking for community input as well as SHPO feedback on the draft ordinance before they prepare their final recommendations to the council for consideration.
Council or planning commission?
Council,
Okay.
because this is a committee that was created by the city council. If the city council then directs staff to move forward with a text amendment, obviously as part of that entitlement process, because this is part of Title 11, it would require a public hearing before the Planning Commission for consideration, and then final consideration by the council for the text amendment.
I'm going to be out of town. I wish I could come to these workshops. Is there going to be some kind of written thing that we can read, like a concise overview of what was discussed, or that way we could read that?
What we can do for the June meeting is provide a written overview of the activities at these open house meetings.
Okay, I would really appreciate that. That would help a lot. Thank you. And I encourage all of you to attend if you can. I think it's going to be very interesting. We've worked on this for quite a while, so I'm just ecstatic that we actually got this far with this. We had to overcome some hurdles in all of this, but with all of us working together as a community, we can go forward. So thank you so much for anyone that's helped in this regard. Okay, any other comments? Okay, number 6 for possible action, discussion regarding the Historic Preservation Award for 2021.
As noted in the staff report, last night was the May 25th council meeting, and Chairman Graham for Historic Preservation Month announced the winner of this year's award and read off the certificate that had been drafted by Member Davenport. And since I had emailed members about this previously, the report notes that the owner of the property does not live there, and it turns out he was a very private person, and since he didn't nominate his own property, he didn't actually want to attend the city council meeting and did not give permission for a video to be done on his property, as was the original plan for the event for this year. And so staff will provide the certificate and the plaque to the owner. Now that the award has been announced, we will provide that separately to him, and hopefully he'll put the plaque on the building. The only other note in the staff report was that when we were clarifying the language for their certificate, we found out that there appeared to be conflicting information from the Northwind report about this property, because as former member Hauntz had noted in his application or his nomination, that there was conflicting information as to whether the house was individually eligible, because some of her information had indicated that the house was individually eligible for listing on the National Register of Historic Places, and yet the final report to the ARA form said it was not. And so you've got her comments in the staff report that noted that there was an error, and that due to the changes to the facade, the building wasn't recommended as being individually eligible, but it is still contributing to the district.
Yes, that's correct. Any other comments? I'm always learning. I feel like I'm in college. I'm learning about the Boulder City historic areas, and it's so fascinating. I did want to, on the award, this was part of what was on there, and it says, of the 26 single-family employee residences constructed by the Bureau of Reclamation in 1932, the property at 507 Utah retains the most of its original architectural design and materials and remains a contributing resource of the Boulder City Historic District. And in our packet, there was a picture of some of the 26 family residences, and you can see that, and some of the comments of the person that recommended this said that this was temporary housing. So, and you can see where it was like on stilts. And now, if you look at this picture, you could, of the house that did receive the award, and it's very deserving, by the way. It's been covered up underneath there. The stilts aren't showing anymore, and it looks more like a house that would be more permanent now. And so anyway, I was just excited about that we could recognize this house on 507 Utah. Any other comments?
I guess I just want to say for the record, even though this is about the award, but it was presented during Historic Preservation Month.
Yeah.
But the tour that Charlie conducted in the Avenue area was really well received. So it sounds like folks enjoyed it. And I guess when we talk about next year's Historic Preservation Month, we consider, doing those again, perhaps. So.
Definitely. I did talk to Charlie just a little bit, and he said that this was sort of like a trial run to see how it went. And so I'm glad that it was well received. And so hopefully we can get him involved next year and put him on the tour again, because we weren't able to have him the last time, everything that happened. So I hope it works out.
I went on the tour on that Saturday morning, and it was very interesting. A good turnout of people there that showed up for it. So I think the whole thing, was sold out, shall we say? Because I think you guys did three tours. I went on it, and I thought found it to be very interesting. And Charlie shares a wealth of information about those homes and stuff down there. So it's just, don't quiz me on what all you said, but he's very knowledgeable, and they kept the tour moving, and they kept it interesting. So if he were to do it again, I would hope maybe he can do it over a couple of weekends and maybe get more people involved. And he did a great job on it, so an attaboy to Charlie for putting that together. And I know he had help from, I think, Ray and Blair, and
Yes.
so attaboy to you guys too.
Thank you.
Yes, so we're way ahead on our planning for next year. Step ahead.
And
All right.
might add, we did film it, and so there will
cool.
be a video version of the tour.
Okay. Is that going to be okay to put that on the website, or it's not a city thing? So
Yeah, you apparently, did that. I mean,
On their own.
Citizens did it on their
Right.
own. So
Yeah.
I guess, Ray, you could forward it to us, and we could look at it and see if it was, appropriate,
Okay.
to make available on the city channel.
Okay.
I'll definitely share it with you when it's finished.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you so much. All right, we'll move on then to number 7. For possible action, discussion and an update on the status of properties in the historic district and or other potentially eligible properties. Any comments? Hearing none, then we'll move on. Number 8, for possible action, committee discussion regarding potential agenda items for upcoming Historic Preservation Committee meetings.
This isn't quite the same as an agenda item, but I guess 2 calendar items of note. One, this is Member Wainwright's last meeting,
Oh.
as she's resigned, unless you've changed your mind.
Oh, my goodness.
And number 2, we will not be having a July meeting, and neither will other committees. If it falls after the first council meeting in July to the end of the month, this entire council chamber is going under reconstruction, so.
Oh, really? Wow.
So a good time to take a
Wanna work.
vacation.
No July meeting.
So we won't meet again till August then?
Oh, you will have a June meeting.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the end of the
Yeah,
month.
we're not, yeah, this is May. I'm thinking in June. I'm getting ahead of myself. I was thinking we're June already. That's not till next week. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Sorry to see you go.
Yes, right. We're just getting acquainted.
You know, I enjoy serving on committees, Susan. I tell you, I've been on several.
Oh, good. Well,
So-
I'm glad you joined us for a little while. All right. Okay, then I guess we are done for today. I did see a letter here from Northwind. I guess you all read that also. And that was already taken care of, so, okay. All right, very good then. For all practical purposes, this meeting is adjourned.
No.
Oh, wait a minute.
Closing public comment.
I'm sorry. Okay, public comments. Okay, we're open now again for public comments. Public comments during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. Each person has up to 5 minutes to speak on a specific agenda item. To comment during the meeting, members of the public may call 702-589-9629 when the public comment period is opened, and it is now opened. Okay, since there's no public comment, then that period is now closed. And for all practical purposes, this meeting is adjourned.